Welcome back. Today we're going to be making the rest of the Oscars menu, so let's get started. First thing we're going to do is make chocolate peanut butter balms for the movie Oppenheimer. First thing we're going to do is I've softened this chocolate ice cream. You can use any kind that you want, and we're going to mix it in the electric mixer to soften it up a little bit. So I have these little disposable cups. I got them at Smart and Final, and we're just going to scoop some ice cream in each of them, push it around the sides. And if you need more, just put a little more in. You just want to put like a little indent, but you want also enough ice cream around the sides. Next thing I'm going to do is take some Reese's peanut butter sauce, and I'm going to fill the hole. The next thing we're going to do is I pre-made some brownies. I just bought a mix, and I made it according to the package directions. I used Ghirardelli's dark chocolate brownies, and then I'm going to take a cookie cutter and just cut circles out of them, and I'm going to put this. These are going to be eventually flipped over after they're frozen, and then the brownie will be the bottom part. Okay, so now that I have this, I'm going to put it back in the freezer until this hardens up probably a couple hours. Then we'll finish it up. The next thing I'm going to do is take 2 cups of chocolate chips and a half a cup of coconut oil that's been refined so it doesn't taste like coconut. I'm going to put it in the microwave to melt it. Starting with a minute and then stirring it and then putting it in for 30 seconds every time until it's completely melted. Meanwhile, I'm going to take these out of the cups. So I found the easiest way is to just run a knife on the edge, and then I'm just using some scissors that I washed, and then just two different sides, and it peels right off. It's just a little messy. Flip it over. I'm just gonna keep doing these. As soon as I get this one out, I'm gonna check the chocolate, stir it. So it's starting to melt. And the coconut oil will make the chocolate thinner, and it will also kind of make like a magic shell, like a hardened shell on the ice cream when we pour it over it. I'll put it in again for 30 seconds. So I'm going to pop this back in the freezer while I'm doing the chocolate. When you're dealing with chocolate, you want to make sure your hands are dry. Any little bit of water getting into the chocolate will seize the chocolate up. So I'm stirring again. It's going to need more time. The reason why you do it 30 seconds at a time is you don't want the chocolate to burn. I placed the ice cream bombs on a baking rack on top of a baking sheet, because now we're going to take the melted chocolate and we're going to enrobe the bombs. It doesn't have to be fully covered. And then I'm going to take some chopped peanuts and then just put a little on the top. These can last in the freezer for up to 6 months. As you see, all the ones I already did are already hardened when they get matte. Then you just pop them in the freezer. I'm going to let them freeze on this for a little bit, and then I'm going to take them out and put them in a sealable container until the party. The next dish we're going to make is Cheeseburger Sliders, and it's for the movie The Holdovers. What we're going to do is start with 2 pounds of ground beef, and I'm going to add to that 2 teaspoons of garlic salt, 2 teaspoons of black pepper, and a teaspoon of regular kosher salt. And then I'm just going to use my hands and mix it. I just find it easier. Just mix it, mix it. And then I have a 9x13 pan, and I'm just going to take the meat and make 1 large patty. We're going to take this and put it in a 350-degree oven for 20 minutes. Now I'm gonna take a package of Hawaiian rolls. And I'm gonna cut them in half. And then now I'm gonna make a glaze to put on the tops of the buns to add a little more flavor to them. So while the meat is cooking, I'm gonna caramelize some onions. So you just need about a tablespoon of butter. Just gonna let the butter melt. And then I diced a small onion. And we're just gonna let this cook, stirring once in a while until they caramelize. The heat is on high right now, but once the butter melts, I'm gonna turn it down to like medium low. And just let them slowly cook. They're starting to get nice and caramelized, little brown bits. It smells delicious. So what I'm gonna do is take 2 tablespoons of honey mustard and 3 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce, and then half a teaspoon of kosher salt. And then I'm gonna melt half a stick or a 1/4 cup of unsalted butter. Just stir this up. So the reason why I picked cheeseburgers for the holdovers is because, well, actually there's a lot of food in the holdovers. So it was a little bit hard to decide, but I chose cheeseburgers because there's a scene where Paul and Angus are at a diner and Angus tries to order a cheeseburger with a Miller, but of course he's in high school. So Paul was like, no way. But they both ordered cheeseburgers. And then in another part of the movie, they reference that scene again, talking about they need to go order cheeseburgers and Miller beer. So I decided to use that food for this movie. So now I'm adding the melted butter. We're just gonna stir it up to combine. And then we're gonna brush it on the tops. So this should have some nice umami, but then a little sweetness. Then we're gonna sprinkle some sesame seeds on top. So I took the meat out of the oven. It's still not fully cooked, but it will get cooked all the way. And then I'm gonna set it on the bottom bun. Then I'm gonna add the onions. Spread this out. And then we're gonna add some cheese to it. I'm using sharp cheddar. And then we'll pop it back in the oven for a little bit to melt the cheese and toast the top. I'm just gonna put it for like 5 minutes to check it. So now I'm gonna transfer this onto the board. I'm just gonna add some pickles and then some shredded lettuce. And then I'm gonna put the top on. Ooh, that's the hardest part. And then from there, I'm going to cut them into individual sliders. Another thing you could do is put toothpicks in them to help like the top stay on. For the party, I'd get like frilly ones so that people could see that there's a toothpick there. But much easier to cut. Just pull it apart. That's what you got.
On it.
It's just
Heaven.
all it is just meat, cheese, lettuce, and pickle. Yeah.
If we just ate the whole thing.
Here, then put it come in the
foul
kitchen.
gold. Not good for you. That's good. That's super good. I do like the way you did the meat too.
And it's not like overcooked. It's medium rare.
And you put pickles in there too, didn't you? It's good because that's a lot of meat.
Yeah, it's not too skinny.
I would agree with that.
It's
yeah.
a lot of meat.
And quality meat, everything's good. It's good.
They're fun. Next, we're gonna make fennel, apple, and celery salad. And this is for the movie The Zone of Interest. So first we're gonna make the dressing. So we needed a small shallot that's diced, about a teaspoon fresh lemon zest. And then we need 4 teaspoons of honey mustard. And then we're gonna cut the lemon and use a couple teaspoons of the lemon. And we're gonna whisk this together. 5 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. Just put a little at a time and then whisk it together. Then I'm gonna add salt and pepper to taste. And then in this bowl, we're gonna add, I already sliced on the diagonal a whole head of celery, and I saved the leaves and I put it in a separate bowl. So we're gonna put this in here, and we're gonna toss this all together and let it sit while we cut up the rest of the ingredients. As we add stuff, I might add a little more lemon juice because I think I want the dressing a little looser, but we'll see as we go. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut up the fennel, and this is what the fennel looks like, and I just want the bulb part. And I want the fennel cut really thin, so I'm going to use a mandolin. If you don't have a mandolin, you could just cut it as thin as you can with your knife. And we're going to toss the fennel. And then now I'm going to cut apples. And you need 4 apples. You could use a variety. And apples are the reason why I picked this recipe. In the movie, there's a scene where one of the servants steals a bunch of apples because she's hungry. She's starving, basically. I'm going to cut all these and core them. Right here I'm using Granny Smith and Fuji apples. And then I'm going to use the mandolin again. I'm going to squirt the apple with a little lemon so it doesn't turn brown too fast. Now I'm going to cut up about half a cup of almonds. I'm just going to roughly chop them. This salad shouldn't be made more than like a couple hours before you're going to eat it. We're going to throw this in there. And then we're going to put in the celery leaves as well as a little bit of Italian parsley. Just break it up. And then the last thing that goes in here is about half a cup of Parmesan shavings. And then just toss it together and ready to go. The last thing we're going to be making is Osage Indian fry bread, and it's for the movie Killers of the Flower Moon. So we're starting with 4 cups of all-purpose flour, and to that we're going to add 2 teaspoons of kosher salt, 1.5 tablespoons of baking powder, and we're just going to whisk this together to blend it. And then we're going to add 1 tablespoon of melted vegetable shortening and 2 cups of warmed whole milk. And now I'm going to just mix it with my hands. It's hot, so too hot. So just keep combining. We're going to keep mixing a little, and if it's too dry, we'll just add a little more milk. And I picked this recipe because it's a traditional Osage tribal recipe. I found it on the Osage Indian tribe website. Now I'm going to put it out onto the counter with a little flour. I think it's a little dry, so I'm going to go with my instincts and add a little more milk. So I'm going to heat up the milk a little bit. And then also on the stove I have a pan of vegetable shortening that's heating up. It's supposed to be at like 370 before we fry it. I'm sure you're wondering, I said that this is the last recipe, and that means there's only 8 recipes and there's 10 nominees. So what about the other 2? Well, so when I'm making this many recipes, I always try to buy a couple things, make it a little bit easier. So for the movie Past Lives, I am going to I'm gonna go buy in K-Town Korean fried chicken, because in Past Lives the main character is Korean but she lives in the United States and she goes back to Korea to find a childhood love. And then the last movie is Maestro, so I came up with a little package I'm gonna put together. It's these 2 things: symphony chocolate bar, because he's a maestro of a symphony, and then bubblegum cigarettes, because he's a chain smoker. There was never a scene in that movie that he was not smoking. And I'm gonna just tie a little ribbon around this and have it for each person. So that's why I did those 2 things. Just gonna put a little bit, it doesn't need much. I'm just gonna knead it and then we're gonna roll it out. So we're going to roll it out pretty thin. We're going to make smaller pieces of fried bread, because since we have so many different varieties of food. In this recipe it says to cut the dough into a diamond shape and then cut a slit in the middle. I'm going to slice it in the middle this way. I'm going to stretch it a little. I think it should be much thinner. So I took a little bit of the dough to test the oil to see if it was ready. And it is, and it should take only a couple minutes to cook this. Okay, there we have it. Stay tuned for our next video showing how the Oscar party turned out. Also, click and subscribe. Leave in the comments if you tried any of these recipes or what your favorite Oscar movie was. And thanks for joining me.